It's Friday, so that means it's another day in America, which means there's been another mass shooting. This time in Indianapolis, where at a FedEx location, I think it was near the Indianapolis airport, a gunman opened fire, killing 8 people, 4 outside the facility and 4 in, is what investigators and authorities have been saying. At this facility, at the FedEx facility, and also killed himself in the meantime. And I think they're still looking for a motive behind it. They have identified the shooter. We are not going to be pointing out his name, but let's go straight to the Associated Press and some of their details on this. So investigators, they searched the home of this particular suspect after he had killed himself and seized evidence, desktop computers, other electronic media, is what officials did say. And they also could not discuss the matter publicly and spoke with the AP on the condition of anonymity as they were trying to figure this all out. Now, as I said, they have since identified him, and I think they are still getting information to the families of those 8 victims. And there's several others that were also injured. I think those people have been notified as well because they did survive. Continuing on, the Deputy Chief Craig McCart of Indianapolis Police said that the gunman started randomly shooting at people in the parking lot, then went into the building and continued firing. He said the gunman apparently died by suicide shortly before the police entered the building. He went on to say that there was no confrontation with anyone that was there. There was no disturbance, there was no argument. He just appeared to randomly start shooting. Let's jump real quick and go to one of the eyewitnesses' accounts from this. He was on break with a friend who also had some things that he was quoted to be said by the local media there. Let's hear what this witness had to say.
I opened my chips, got my sandwich, about to take a bite. He was about to take a bite out of his sandwich, and we heard 2 loud metal clangs at first, because they didn't sound like gunshots at first. Because there was a loud clang after the first 2, and then my buddy Levi stood up as he was like kind of squatting at the bench, and then looked over and out into the parking lot. Didn't see anything yet. Then we heard 3 more shots, and then my buddy Levi saw someone running out of the building. And then more shots went off. Somebody went behind their car to the trunk and got another gun, and then I saw 1 body on the floor.
So as we keep seeing, there's another one of these shootings where potentially, or not even potentially, but we did find out that this guy has been on the radar of authorities previous to this happening. Let's jump up to these graphics really fast from CNN. It said the suspect in the Indianapolis mass shooting was known to federal and local authorities prior to this attack. A family member of the suspected shooter reached out to authorities warning about the suspect's potential for violence. According to 3 law enforcement sources, it was also not clear when the warning was given, but the outreach was followed up by both local authorities and the FBI, which opened a preliminary investigation into any possible threat. Lastly, the FBI eventually closed the inquiry after concluding that there wasn't sufficient evidence to continue it. That's also according to those sources who did not specify why federal investigators dropped that matter. So his name was on their radar. They apparently looked into it, moved on from family members that mentioned he may have a bit of a possibility for carrying out something like this. Yeah. What do you guys think?
All right, well, a couple of things here. As I was listening to that witness, I thought, get ready. You should have a plan for when a shooting happens near you, a mass shooting, a massacre, because now it's exceedingly likely that there will be a massacre that it affects you. So let me give you a sense of why I say that. Just this year, we're just in April. There's already been 147 mass shootings. Mass shootings are when at least 4 people are shot and killed. So that used to be a massacre. That's like way larger than the shootout at the OK Corral. Okay, now if you only shoot and kill 4 to 5 people, it doesn't even make the news. So did you hear all 147? No, of course you didn't. Right? You've only heard the ones that are like where the body count is now they keep on moving it up. Now the body count has to be like 8 or higher to make national news. There's been 45 shootings, mass shootings, since the last one that got to 10, which was in Colorado, okay? In Indianapolis alone, just this year so far, there's been 3 mass shootings. So there's no end to it as far as the eye can see. And our politicians have absolutely no will to fix it. The Republicans are happy to participate to get the money from the NRA. They get paid for massacres. They just do. That's just a fact. The NRA gets it from gun manufacturers. It passes on the Republican politicians. As long as they're getting those contributions, they will never cross the NRA. We won't even end cop killer bullets. There's blue lives don't matter. Nothing matters as long as our corrupt politicians keep getting money, and the Democrats is usually whimper, right? So Biden, Kamala Harris putting out statements today that were the equivalent of thoughts and prayers. We hope that Congress does something about it. Well, gee, I wish you were in a position of power where you could actually make that happen. So now I know that they can't get the Republicans to vote their way, and I know that Joe Manchin, in that case, actually does have a real thing with people don't want too much gun regulation in West Virginia. That's usually Joe Manchin is lying. Oh, people of West Virginia want lower wages. No, it's for his corporate donors. In this case, the people of West Virginia don't want too much gun regulation, so that is a real political problem. But that's why you need a strong leadership, strong president to get beyond that problem and find a solution. But Biden is very unlikely to do it, and Democrats have basically surrendered on this issue. So there will be nonstop massacres. And in terms of why he did the shooting and why the FBI dropped the earlier investigation, two things. One is he apparently worked at FedEx before. Guy's obviously mentally unstable. We don't know yet at all, but the most likely reason is he shot the people there because he knew the people there, and you go to the place where you know folks, right? If you're in this mentally unstable category, right? There apparently were a lot of Sikhs shot and a lot of Sikhs that worked in that facility. Sikhs are often confused for Muslims. Sometimes they will get violent attacks because of that. We don't know if that's the case at all. Let's let the authorities sort it out. Usually the answer is proximity, so it's more likely it's because he worked at the FedEx place, but we'll find out. Why did the FBI drop it? I don't know if they found weapons at his house, but we're a country that's totally nuts. So you could do wild threats and your family can call the FBI because they're so worried you're gonna murder people, and you can still have weapons and they still won't take them away because there's no laws, there's no rules, there's no regulations. And if the FBI assumed all that stuff, they probably would still have to leave him alone anyway and wait till he murders 8 people. And voila, that's just what happened.
That's such a clean take from start to finish. It's tough to really improve upon it, but I feel as though what Cenk said at the end is very important because you're going to hear more about that. This guy was on the radar. We're already hearing about that, how these threats were articulated prior. The family knew about it. Law enforcement knew about it. Okay, great. But here's the reality in America, the America that Cenk also, I think, accurately described. There's nothing we can do. This is madness. It's lunacy. But for all of the reasons that Cenk again articulated, involving NRA, and honestly, I don't even know if it's money coming from the NRA anymore. There's almost a reflexive, baked-in fealty to the gun lobby across the board. I mean, either it's explicit through the NRA or it's implicit through your constituency, which is now awash in guns too, if you're a legislator. In any case, there is no desire politically to make moves on this. And we said it at the time, I said it, and I'm sure many others did here on TYT and elsewhere. After Sandy Hook, when they slaughtered all of those kids 6 to 8 years old, if you couldn't get any legislation through Congress after that, you'll never get legislation through. And so a country that has hit critical mass on guns, we'll see more of this. And regrettably, we're gonna have more of these conversations.
Yeah, Cenk, to your point about, they monitored, maybe they didn't do enough. I'm sure people are probably upset that this guy was on the radar and nothing ended up coming from it. But if you think, I'm not in law enforcement, it's pretty obvious. But when you think about it, then what is there that you can do? As law enforcement, someone notifies you that this guy has a gun and that he's espoused thoughts of doing something with it like this, and he hasn't done it yet. You gonna monitor him for how long? Because there's a million others just like him that have guns or have access to guns or would get access to guns pretty quickly and easily once they finally decide to go through with what maybe a family member or a friend has noticed them thinking or talking about or written down. How do you sit and track this many millions of people who have the potential to do something like this? Even the ones who aren't mentally unstable, just the ones who have a bad day, we've heard that. Ones who are broken up by their girlfriend, I don't know, they're something else happened in their lives that they're upset about, and they go and take it out, or they got fired. All these things happen. I don't know, the barbecue that they were at, someone took the last rib. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It sets people off, but it's hard to monitor every single one of them. So what do we do now? What do you do to prevent it the next time? Before we get to more of that, I just want to go really fast because you did mention Vice President Kamala Harris and also what Joe Biden had to say. Let's go to Kamala first, just really fast. She was speaking about this just before she was about to have a bilateral meeting with I think the Japanese Prime Minister. Let's see what she had to say.
Yet again, we have families in our country that are grieving the loss of their family members because of gun violence. There is no question that this violence must end, and we are thinking of the families that lost their loved ones.
So that was the totality of what she had to say at that moment. Also, really fast, President Biden said, gun violence is an epidemic in America. We should not accept it. We must act. Last week, I called on the Justice Department to better protect Americans from gun violence. I also urged Congress to hear the call of the American people, including the vast majority of gun owners, to enact common sense gun violence prevention legislation like universal background checks and a ban of weapons of war and high capacity magazines. Too many Americans are dying every single day from gun violence. It stains our character and pierces the very soul of our nation. I mean, the flowery words, and it's the right take to say it must end this, it must end. This is the worst. It's embarrassing for the nation. It's even worse for the families of Americans that end up dying every day from this type of stuff. What is the answer though, What's next?
Well, okay, luckily you've come to the right place, Jayar. I have all the answers. Okay, so let me answer it on 3 different layers. So first of all, politically, what are they supposed to do? So you heard Jayar tell you Biden urges Congress to act. So Kamala Harris in a tweet also said, quote, I urge Congress to act. Oh, you urge them. I feel that they probably feel quite urged by your urging. That means nothing meat burger. Here's how you do it if you want to actually take action. The president would call a press conference today and say, I'm tired of the massacres that happen in our country nonstop because of Republicans. The Republicans have voted down every piece of gun legislation we have sent them. So 97% of Americans want federal background checks, including the overwhelming majority of Republican voters and the overwhelming majority of gun owners. But Republican politicians say no. I guess they like massacres. So I want to show you Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Louis Gohmert, Matt Gaetz, you name it. These are the people that bring you massacre after massacre after massacre. I lay it at their feet because they keep voting no on the simplest gun regulations like federal background checks and yes, banning assault rifles, the assault weapons. But that would require strength, God forfend. We can't have Democrats actually show strength. All they could do is urge. How's urging coming along for us? No, none of the massacres are gonna stop. But that's what you would do if you wanted them to stop. Number 2, what could the FBI have done if we had a rational country, not this one? There probably are hamstrung because there's almost no laws on guns. So yeah, if the guy probably came with 2 legal guns and they were all assault rifles, and he said, "Yeah, man, who cares? I'm gonna do whatever I want." Say, "Oh yes, sir, absolutely, sir." And you're white? Oh, I'd say right away, sir. We back out right away. Okay. So there's nothing they can do. If you would live in a rational country, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's great. Give me your goddamn guns. You're obviously mentally unstable. Your parents called me saying you're gonna murder people. Give me all your weapons." Okay. So I don't know that, if the FBI, what kind of authority they have in that particular case, because we don't know all the details of that case. But likely there probably was nothing they could do because we have no laws. All right, almost no laws. All right, lastly, is there anything that could be done since the Democrats won't do anything, the Republicans are evil? Yeah, but it's a super dangerous route. If every black man in America availed themselves of a weapon and then carried it publicly in places where it is legal, we would have gun control within 24 hours. Okay, and everybody knows it, and it's historical. It happened before. Before we Second Amendment, yeah, guns, awesome. And then the Black Panthers said, "Oh, that's a good point. We're Americans, so we can have guns too." And it turns out you can bring them into the Capitol in California. They did, and the governor of California instantly passed gun control laws immediately. And that governor's name was, of course, Ronald Reagan. Okay, now the reason why you shouldn't do it, and it's dangerous, is 1, more guns equals more deaths. And if you have a gun in your house, you're more likely to die and to get shot, so don't do it. And the second reason is if you go out in public as a black man with a gun, doesn't matter how legal it is, they'll kill you. As Philando Castile, Lieutenant Nazario luckily wasn't killed. He's the guy who was pulled over by cops. But monsters like Greg Kelly on Newsmax were like, oh, he had a weapon in the car. He's a lieutenant. He's in the army now. He's like, yeah, but he's black. Why? They probably should have shot him. So I'm exaggerating, but only by a little bit. Greg Kelly didn't say they should have shot him, but he did say he had it coming. He should have pulled him over. How dare he not listen? He should be kicked out of the army. There was a loaded weapon in the car. He's in the army, right? But he's black. So don't actually do it. But if it happened, yes, we would have gun control instantly.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. We really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, Jayar. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.